I swear we answer this question every single week, but when I watch AEW Dynamite, I always like to kind of go on social media afterwards and get a lay of the land. And there's always two very specific hot takes, but we lean into the one that especially I got over the last couple of weeks, which is essentially, has AEW gone too far given that Darby Allin has essentially become a criminal? Because yes, on last week's episode of AEW Dynamite, he came out with a flamethrower, which I just thought was the best thing ever. And on this week's show, let me see if I can get this right, he handcuffed Pac in the middle of his match. He then used mace on that's so good. Used mace on Pac. He then got a Molotov cocktail, and in between all that, I think he also tasered Wheeler Yuta. Wheeler Yuta is one of my favorite characters in wrestling right now because he's just decided his role is going to be almost a comic book villain that gets attacked and killed all of the time. I understand this is very specific to me, and as I always like to caveat, because people get so damn mad, which you're allowed to do, but whatever floats your boat when it comes to pro wrestling is what floats your boat. If you like it super serious at the time, awesome. If you're a goofy wrestling for life guy like myself, awesome. I actually like them to be pushed together. If a whole show was just goofy wrestling for life, it wouldn't be as funny because you would know the next segment was going to be goofy, and it's the same for serious wrestling. If you just have one common thread running through an entire program, not even in wrestling, in movies or music or books, of course it's going to get boring because your brain likes variety and your brain likes something different. It's why dieting is so hard to go on a massive tangent. Usually you eat the same thing every single damn day. It can be good for routine, but it can become very boring very, very quickly. I never want this to go away in pro wrestling. So to answer the question right out of the gate, no, I don't think AEW goes too far. There are things they've done that I haven't enjoyed. Syringe in the mouth, which I'll never get over. Everything that John Moxley and Darby Allin have done with ears isn't really necessarily in my boat, but I have the choice to ignore that, especially now when it comes to stipulation matches. I understand that AEW is going to push the boat out as much as they can, and thank Flubbins that is the case. And again, there's no right or wrong here. WWE is more of sort of a, we'll call it, produced Disney idea of what wrestling should be, sports entertainment, and that's awesome. And AEW has gone more gritty and more what wrestling used to be back in the day. That's what always makes me laugh. You'll see something like we did last night, and people go, oh, they never would have done that back in the day. Man, you have not seen some territorial wrestling, which is just like Mid-South wrestling. Oh my gosh, the most violent thing you've ever seen in your life. But that's the whole point. Now, last night I actually did enjoy everything that we did. I was laughing out loud, which means I've been entertained, which is all we needed to do. And when that security guard came and rugby tackled Darby to stop him using a Molotov cocktail, I was like, that is the most realistic thing that has ever happened in the history of world when it comes to predetermined sports. That's what you would do. Now, as we know, because I started this trend, I didn't start this trend because I was a part of it. I felt like I could take the mick out of it. Useless wrestling security guards are everywhere. They kind of don't really do their job, and sometimes they come to the ring and break people up, and sometimes they're just chilling in the back playing Nintendo. But this dude was on it, man. He realized he could burn this place down. Totally wrecked him, which made the whole segment funnier. And then, of course, Darby Allin sort of gets arrested, not really. And he's smiling like the Cheshire Cat as John Moxley. It's like, I'm going to be totally fine. I beat Ishii earlier. I can definitely deal with Darby Allin, or maybe I can't. But that's the whole point, too. They are having an I Quit match, and Darby has now made it very clear with his actions that he will do whatever it takes to make John Moxley say I quit. I have to presume that Fire is going to be involved, because Fire has become the centerpiece of all of this, which is also kind of nuts. And I think that's when I get a little bit irked, I suppose. If it's good faith and we can actually have a chat about what we like and what we don't like, awesome. But last week especially, everyone's like, well, how can I possibly believe he's going to use a flamethrower? And he never used a flamethrower. He used a flamethrower. He used a flamethrower last year and he burnt Jack Perry alive. And then instantly you tell people that and they come back with, that's absolutely stupid. You can't be mad at both. You either have to accept they're going to use flamethrowers, but then you can't act like they haven't used it because they've used it anyway. I'm getting way off track here. But Darby Allin, the character, is totally nuts. He's totally unhinged in his real life as well. We've seen kind of the stunts that he's done. He climbed Mount Everest, which like 4 people have done in the history of the world. I'm exaggerating, of course. You know, the last thing I want is for WWE and AEW to feel the same. I just feel like when AEW does push the boat out, it feels totally different. I don't like saying, oh, it's like the Attitude Era, because I think that's a bit of a redundant argument. I think you can compare them in the sense that when the Attitude Era really appealed to young boys especially, it's because they went absolutely crazy. Now, a lot of that has aged poorly, most of the sexual stuff. The violence that they included, which was kind of comic book violence, but everybody remembers what Steve Austin did with his fake firearm and Vince McMahon. We remember the beer truck. We remember when Austin had Triple H on a crane in a car and dropped it. Triple H should have been dead. He was totally fine. We blew up the D-Generation X bus. There's been so many of these, and I suppose they were on a bigger scale, you could argue, because we're just using sort of weaponry here. But knowing that Darby Allin will come out and use whatever he wants, it actually makes him quite a smart babyface. I mean, it makes him an unhinged criminal too. But he knows the Death Riders are going to sort of play the numbers game against him. He doesn't really have any friends since fake dad Sting left him. So he's gone into his personal arsenal and he's going to try and use that too. You couldn't do it every single week, but building up to an I Quit match where we're trying to really, I suppose, protect Jon Moxley, because I think he's going to go through hell on earth before he does say I quit. I just like it. And even if I didn't like it, I certainly wouldn't be on the bandwagon of, oh, AEW's gone too far. I'd just be like, okay, you kind of went a little bit too far for my tastes. Maybe next time I'd still watch it, because who cares, man? Like, as long as it's not offensive, I don't care if you do stuff like that. Like, I really didn't like it when Moxley got the spike bat in the back and they had to rip it out and you had to saw flesh and bone and stuff like that. Once again, a massive exaggeration. But I don't want AEW to stop doing it because of me. I want them to always keep doing it because that's the lane that they've chosen. And listen, sometimes they do things and it's awesome. Let's not pretend otherwise. If you're in the right mood, it will get you. I suppose the reason this has sort of lit a fire, terrible use of words there, under everything, is because, of course, Tony Khan was asked about ticket prices a few weeks ago, and he said he's trying to pitch AEW as family entertainment, and then, yes, we had the flamethrower, and everyone was like, oh, that's not family entertainment. It's like, well, that's up to parents to decide, and parents have to manage your kids. But if you sit down or watch AEW Dynamite and you think some things go too far, there's one or two things you can do. You can say, from now on, I get to watch this first, and I will pick and choose the segments you are allowed to see, or you just stop your kids from watching it. This is nothing new. And this is how I know it's tribalism, because I was banned from watching WWF in the late 90s because my parents walked in. I don't remember what was happening, but I'm sure it was borderline nuts. They were like, you are not watching this. And eventually you sneak back in and start watching it again anyway. I mean, they weren't massively enthused that Steve Austin walked around double burning everybody, because of course they wouldn't be. I was like, what, 8 years old? They were like, no, you don't get to watch this. It's not for kids. So I think a lot of it is disingenuous. And I'm not saying you can't hate it, once again, because people seem to miss what I'm saying. But you want AEW to sort of venture into this territory, especially when it makes sense for the character. Like if Orange Cassidy all of a sudden walked out and shot somebody, I'd be like, well, not 100% know if I buy that. But with Darby Allin, you expect the unexpected, because that's what he's been like for day one. If nothing else, it was just a super fun end to Dynamite, because it was so silly and over the top, which is what I always want wrestling to be in some guys. And also it followed a great main event. Because honestly, Orange Cassidy and Pac just do not have bad matches. They've been doing this for what, must be 5 years, probably 6. It wouldn't surprise me if they did sort of squeeze in one in 2019 as well. Pac now wears a singlet and yet he's more jacked than ever. It's wonderful. I love it when wrestlers do stuff like that. Orange Cassidy, I do believe, is, well, both of them, to be honest, are two of the most underrated dudes, you know, doing the rounds right now. You never see them have a bad match, especially not together. And some of the spots here, the Falcon Arrow on the floor, the Tombstone on the floor, the splash through the table, Orange Cassidy this DDT at one point that looks so damn good. And I like sort of the funky finish too. What I really liked about it is after Darby Allin had done the handcuffing and Pac had escaped, the timing on the leap over the ropes, which was nuts anyway. How the flub did Pac do that? Right into the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, surprise roll-up. I just thought it was wonderful. And that's great wrestling, right? And the fact that we could get some shenanigans built in there and then essentially do, I guess you could call it a relatively simple hold in sense of what it was, but to make it look as good as it did, that's when you know everything is ticking on the right lane, which is a stupid thing to say. And overall, I didn't think this episode of AEW Dynamite was the best thing I'd ever saw, but I kind of felt like every single segment we did have just told you Wrestle Dream is coming. Let's be more focused on Wrestle Dream. Wrestle Dream is the pay-per-view. We really would like it if you bought Wrestle Dream. That's what build should be. Like even the opening promo between Samoa Joe and Hangman Adam Page, I will stand by this. I think you could have done the weird tag team, how dare you not slap me belt in my face thing last week, but not as pushed it as hard as AEW did. Then this week you have another little bit of a tease. Oh, what's going on there? Then you get the big Samoa Joe explode on week 3 before you go into the pay-per-view. AEW didn't decide to do that. I still think they hit fast forward a little bit, but both these things can be true. I said some What Culture ups and downs as well, so make sure you check that video out. Last week can be a bit like, well, that's a bit strange, and then this week can be awesome. Okay, we kind of tied the dots there and tied the shoelaces, because Hangman Adam Page says, I know this is nothing about a tag. You feel like you got distracted by my whims going after the world title. Now you want it. Now I've got it. Samoa Joe is like, yeah, you are right. Also, you're not a real world champion. I think you're a fraud. He said pretender. And now we're going to fight. These two are so good, you could probably give them a story where they're mice wanting cheese, and they would be able to figure it out. But it was the delivery, it was the bass in their voice, it was the fact they both believed it, the fact that Hangman Adam Page made sure he stayed in his babyface lane. It was a little bit silly that all of a sudden Samoa Joe was a bit like, oh, I'm a big bad heel now. But this is what I mean about elongating things. But that's just my personal taste. You may be like, well, we've got a couple of weeks until Wrestle Dream. Let's just get into it. But maybe Tony Khan knew these two dudes are just superb promos and I can send them out there and they'll sell the whole thing, which they did. Now, there's no jeopardy in the match just because it would be stupid for Samoa Joe to win. But so many times I think especially when he fought Brock Lesnar and nobody believed it either. Years and years ago, 2016, so almost 10 years ago. Samoa Joe was able to get you in the match for, oh, maybe he is going to do it because he is one of the modern day GOATs. And I don't doubt he's not going to be able to do it here as well. And it's good for Hangman and Page because the story is essentially you've never beaten Samoa Joe, so it can be another legend he does knock off, and that's only going to be good for the Hangman and Page character. Before he probably gets into an elongated feud with MJF, I guess. It kind of feels like we're doing program to program until he does come back. Speaking of MJF... Mark Briscoe. Thank Flubbins, he is having a TNT title match with Carl Fletcher. Once again, I think he should have cut the big promo after All Out and said, oh man, I got the biggest victory of my career and I want that TNT title. Instead, Carl Fletcher beats Kyle O'Reilly. Really good match. The two Carls, Carl versus Carl round 2. And then Mark Briscoe kind of gets in his face. Carl Fletcher runs away. And then because they are 2-on-2 in the record books, they're having the championship match. At least we got there in the end, right? I'm not totally adverse to Mark Briscoe winning that. I think Carl Fletcher's now proved to himself he can go in the main event level because that All Out pay-per-view did great buy rate. So if you want to sort of take that belt away from him and start seeing him move up the card and then re-establish Mark Briscoe at that level, I actually think that's massively beneficial for everybody. So that's what I would do, I think, but we'll get to predictions in a couple of weeks. But it was good and it did the job. And I think if you do get a victory over MJF, there should be some kind of reward. It'll be the same if you beat a Hangman, if you beat a Moxley, right? If you're beating the top tier guys, that has to shift you up a level. And if Mark Briscoe does win that, then at least we've done it. I think sometimes AEW just does things in a funny order. Like we'll go left to go right. Like I'm still waiting for my big Eddie Kingston promo, my big Jack Perry promo. They'll probably do it eventually. But for whatever reason, we just haven't got it at the moment. The Jurassic Express were back on this show, and I quite like that as well. Because it was nostalgia, right? They came up, they took on two people just to beat them and to remind you how good they are, great they are. The Young Bucks then attack them afterwards. They're going to do this at Wrestle Dream. I would like a big promo, like I say, between all of them, explaining why they did fall out. They have addressed it here and there on BTE, but I think you always want to do it on Dynamite, which is essentially a Monday Night Raw, for lack of a better term. But this is more about the human side of wrestling. Luchasaurus had a horrific 2025. Thank goodness he's all right. Jack Perry, I think, character-wise and maybe personally struggled a little bit too. That's me putting words in his mouth. But I have to imagine that's why he did go away and then came back as a brand new character. Tried the scapegoat thing, kind of worked, kind of didn't. So to put them back together when they are in similar positions and sell them as a team that people love, the reaction they got last night was awesome. Just makes you feel warm and fuzzy in your tum-tum. And sometimes that's all wrestling needs to be. It is the least important of the most important things. So they get the right notes, the most important of the least important things are the way around. I guess both work to a certain degree. So if you have two human beings that you just kind of need to get back into the mix because they are great, this is the way to do it, right? I don't think you need to overthink it. I was perfectly fine with it. Long may it continue. And I would like to get once the Brodido Takeshita Okada match is out the way, which is happening at Wrestle Dream, which I think Brodido will win. Great match as well, selling Bandido's arm, which he hurt in CMLL, but he didn't. Really, really smart. But I think all those three teams can probably start going after the championships. I still think we can get those AEW tag team titles up to a level where they were before, and these are the kind of people to do it. Also had Lacey Lane debut last night, which is exciting because it means that Kaden Carter could come in. Obviously, they used to be a tag team in WWE, and given that the women's AEW tag titles are going to be a proper thing soon, I feel like we announced them too early because we've gone silent on them now. I'm sure Tony Khan did it because he wanted to, boost the ratings up, which is totally fine. I get that. But some sort of a tournament or seeing who the brackets are, although we are doubling down on the fact, Penelope Ford and Megan Bayne are going to be a team and things like that. But good match. Lacey Lane looked good. Mercedes Moné beat her. She was always going to beat her. But we got the video package. We explained who she's there with. I have no idea who Mercedes Moné is going to fight at the pay-per-view, but she has very much fallen into do a match. She just wants to take on as many people as possible. I think she's wrestling in Denmark in a few weeks. I mean, more power to her. She must love this. But, if Lacey Lane can go into a tag team, I think it's, like I say, super smart to pack out that division as well. Because my feelings on the WWF women's tag team scene, just totally... Well, I guess it's gone back to being underutilized now. They have these really good teams, and they go out there and they do good stuff, and they vanish again, which I always find a bit disappointing. But this was solid. This was good. And John Moxley versus Ishii, it was really, really good. Like I say, every single thing on this show did what it had to do, but then at the end of it, you were like, it was a fine show, but maybe not the greatest show that I've ever seen, but also nothing you could really kick negatively, unless you saw something completely different to what I did. I enjoyed maybe there was one too many, but it was a 2.5 hour show, but everybody got some backstage promo time here. So, we had FTR, and we had Willow Nightingale, and we had Jet Speed, and everybody building their matches for Collision. Again, Eddie Kingston was there, Hook was there, the Beast Mortis was there, Sammy Guevara was there, somebody else was there as well, with the Young Bucks doing their thing. There was a lot of them, which kind of meant they were shrunk down in time, but it does build characters. I think sometimes AEW on occasion can fall into match, which is not a problem depending on what you want to see. But I thought this was good in sort of reaffirming feuds, reaffirming which direction we're going in, and just telling you Wrestle Dream is around the corner. So yes, I liked it a lot. It was a fun old show. It's been a good week for wrestling, so I thought Raw was brilliant as well. And maybe everybody is now sort of getting their focus glasses back on. I don't know what that means. However, it's more important what you think about all of this, so drop me a comment below. Like the video, share the video, please do subscribe. Click that video on the screen to see all my Raw thoughts and how a big twist may be coming, in my opinion. Otherwise, come watch my watch-alongs, patreon.com/Simon316. Got a bunch up there this week, finally. I do apologize for the delay. Otherwise, what's the other thing that I do here? I can't remember. Doesn't matter, whatever it may be. GorillaMind.com/Simon. You can Simon get 10% off. NordVPN.com/Simon to get a deal on that. And then you can watch all the Netflix pay-per-views. Don't tell anybody. Simon316 on social media. And then Simon Miller on TikTok and Simon on Cameo and Pro Wrestling Tees and Big Cartel. I hope you're enjoying wrestling right now. This is Bald A-Hole. We'll see you soon.